Make our labor no be in vain. Make our children no they live like slaves. We don't cry, we don't see shege. Now not the time to correct mistakes.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time to be here. I'm very grateful. I not take it for granted. Blessings to all members of the Wicklow Club. I'm going to start my presentation by outlining the pillars of development and my vision and covenant for Lagos State. The first pillar of my plan and vision for Lagos State is to enshrine transparency and accountability into our system. In the first 100 days of my government, we will create an open Lagos. Open Lagos in the sense of opening all our accounts. Line by line items will be published and released and constantly be archived for the public to see online in relation to construction, procurement, and everything that the state government is using money to do. And this is extremely important because Lagos State prides itself in the monies that it generates from the people. And that in that kind of situation, the social contract between the governed and the governor must be sacrosanct. We have a state that takes pride in the amount of tax that's being generated from the people. Now, once we have done this, we establish benchmarks for everything that we're going to do. So, for instance, there's a World Bank benchmark for the price per kilometer of road. There's a World Bank benchmark for the price per kilometer of rail. This will be the benchmark that we would use. Lagos State, unfortunately, since 1999, has been operating ×4 of that benchmark. You will find that most projects that are done in Lagos State are done at a price of 4 times the value that it should be done, which means that we are suffering with an infrastructure deficit divided by 4. If you have one flyover, you could have had 4. And that is what we are trying to ensure, that we deliver infrastructure that will actually be able to make Lagos State move forward, as opposed to utopianism that we have seen in Lagos State for the past 20-something years. By laying that foundation of transparency and accountability, the next major program we'll be delivering 4 rails in 4 years. It has currently taken Lagos State almost 20 years to do 16 kilometers of rail, despite the fact that they borrowed 1.2 billion to do 160 kilometers. At the rate they are going to take 200 years for them to be able to finish their master plan for rail. On the contrary, you find that Lagos to Ibadan rail, 175 kilometers, was done in 5 years. So these things can be done, and can be done for a price if your priority is to make sure that the quality of life of Lagosians is vastly improved, which will be done when we have mass transit, because that is the essence of having a mega city. Lagos State is only mega city in the population that it has. Aside from that, there's nothing mega about Lagos at all. So we're going to ensure that we make Lagos a truly intermodal transportation system. We're going to dredge our waterways properly. We're going to ensure that we have industrial size type ferries, moving people, connecting the Ikorodu division and all parts of Ibile, Lagos Central, and ensure that we have alternatives to moving across Lagos. And the goal is to make sure that between any place in Lagos State, you can get there between 35 and 40 minutes. My dream for Lagos is that you wake up at 7:30 and can get to your office at 8. And that's what we are going to push and ensure that we can achieve. Thank you. By laying the foundation for transportation, we now put on top of that affordable housing. Once Lagos is connected properly this way, it now opens up development in other parts of Lagos that have been currently underserved. I'm talking about the entire Badagry division, from Alimosho, Ojo, Ajeromi, all the way to Badagry. And then you also have the Ikorodu division. Now, with the proximity to it and the interconnection of Lagos State, we can now have a lot more developers building in those areas and creating affordable housing. The state itself will also carry out affordable housing projects that will be done and openly and transparently given to beneficiaries that are members of the Commonwealth of Lagos. Now, the members of Commonwealth of Lagos are people that pay taxes formally and informally. Once you pay tax, you are a member of the Commonwealth of Lagos, and there is a direct benefit to your tax payments. For us, we want to make sure that we give incentives to people to pay tax. So the moment you're a taxpaying member of society of Lagos State, you have access to credit that builds based on your capacity to manage that credit and pay back your credit. You have access to affordable housing. All affordable housing projects that we're doing, you have access to it because we're open and transparent. You also have access to health insurance. Even as a candidate, I'm already insuring people. And there's so much innovation in micro health insurance now. With a card of 500 naira, you can get treatment value of 5,000 naira. And we partner with multiple pharmacies close to the area that you live. So these are things we are already doing as candidates. So you can imagine what we're doing as governor of Lagos State. On top of the health, on top of the education, on top of the affordable housing, the next thing that we are going to tackle is youth unemployment. It has become a major problem in Lagos State because the Gbadebo menace in Lagos State has increased in leaps and bounds. They have become a law unto themselves, almost the fourth arm of government. And when you speak to these people, every time, I give you an example, on Sunday, I stepped out of an interview and people saw me, Governor Alayedu, were using that voice. And before I give them anything, I always ask, if you had a job, would you work? Is this something you're interested in? And without fail, this has happened to me 7 times during this campaign. That voice that they normally use just disappears. And then you see young men, you actually see them. You know, before this, you have an idea of this, okay, they're just thugs, they're just people that just want to take advantage of people and rob people. But then you realize the young man that I spoke to was a graduate of Unilag from the arts department. The other gentleman was a graduate of Nsukka, and he said they've just not had any jobs. The other gentleman will say, I'm a father, I don't want to be on the streets, but this is the only way we seem to be able to make a living, to be able to feed our families. So there is a huge amount of youth unemployment in Lagos State, and there's a even bigger problem because all the young people in primary schools that are looking up to their older brothers, their cousins, that on the street just carrying a plastic, hitting cars and getting money, and they are aspiring to the head of all of them who is rubbing shoulders with a president or a governor. These young men will not finish secondary school. They will also then go on the streets. When I contested in 2019 to now, the numbers of Agbebos in Lagos have more than increased by times 10. And this is also linked to drug abuse, drug addiction, robbery. You find that in Lagos State now, nowhere is safe. You are going through Apapa because of the traffic, you are trying to take the long way. And even at Igomu, they are hitting your window and robbing you. You go to places like, even in Lekki, a month and a half ago, almost 20 cars were jam locked and people were just robbing the cars. And unfortunately, the elite of Lagos think that by staying in Banana Island, VGC, or any of these places, gated communities, they are safe. But the fact of the matter is, 60% of the population of Lagos State is under 17 years old. If we do not make Lagos State a productive economy, there is only so many bus drivers they can take money from. Before, even when your car spoils on the road, you are in a complete mess. You are trying to solve that problem, but these young men come and they are entitled to take from you. And we need to change this. So for us, we are going to tackle youth unemployment head on. In doing this, we are going to create an alternative means of these young men to earn a living by giving them skill acquisition programs, skill in exchange for food. You come here, you are sure you will eat, but we'll work with you stakeholders, and then we will put it peculiarly to that local government. So we are going to create another layer of this, because we are not project-driven government, we are a system-driven government. We are going to make sure we have a robust, autonomous local government structure, where we have potential governors as local government chairmen. Not what we currently have, which is glorified contractors heading local governments. That's why all our inner roads are the way they are. We're going to have potential governors as local government chairmen. And then we are going to ensure that we set the benchmark for all the inner roads they must do. The quality of the roads, the life expectancy of these roads will be tied into the constructor's payments. Thank you. And any construction company that's going to work in that local government must employ those youth in that local government that have graduated from that program. So we are going to do all of this and tie it directly to the local government to ensure that there is a significant uptake. And in places like Ekpe, Ikorodu, where there is supposed to be a huge aquaculture business and value chain, we'll extend that value chain and teach people skills to be able to engage in that value chain as well. We then tie this, so once we tackle youth unemployment, we also tackle education. We're going to create an education system that is robust. So far, currently in Lagos State, the children, well, you have 2 million children out of school. But then even aside from that, 17% of the children that are in school are going to public schools. So the people have sent a verdict to the government that they do not believe in the public education system. And this is very poor, because there was a time where even if you are not earning a lot, for the fact that your children could go to public school and get a good education, you don't have to deal with the mental and emotional stress of paying school fees. Today, everybody, every father, every mother is hustling to put their children in private schools, because that's the only place they believe they will get an education. And that's not what's supposed to be. The government is going to create an enabling environment and invest heavily in public education. We're going to change the curriculum and expand it by doing after-school programs. For instance, in Lagos today, there are still children that are being told that Mungo Park discovered River Niger. River Niger that their ancestors were bathing in when the Europeans had not even discovered Africa. This is something that needs to be changed. We are going to create a practical education syllabus that gives you applied knowledge, not knowledge that you just cram and you never really have anything to use it for. Or there are children in schools in Lagos State that are drawing computers on the tape on their notebook, and they are memorizing what the shift key is. They've never touched a computer in their life. We are going to change all of this. We are going to ensure that the 700 plus primary, secondary and junior schools in Lagos State have digital knowledge, because the world is leaving us far behind. ChatGPT, you might have heard of it, the AI system now that can replace most human beings, is already coming into full stream. And here we are, our children are not even using laptops properly. So we are going to furiously and aggressively tackle this to bring our children to a Lagos that can actually be world class. In relation to healthcare, we are going to invest heavily in training our doctors, upwardly reviewing their salaries, hiring more support staff so that they are not overworked, and creating a system and a pathway for people to go through before they come to the main hospital. We are going to make our primary healthcare system robust. So if you are not feeling well, you can go there and get a diagnostic test. So you know whether you have typhoid or malaria. You have people that they are not feeling well, they just drink agbo or drink whatever concoction and self-medicate, and in 10-20 years they now have secondary problems of liver and kidney diseases. We want to take all of that out of the system. Prevention is better than cure. And as part of our micro healthcare insurance, what it does is that it normalizes diagnostic tests, which is why I'm so passionate about it. So now we want to normalize the idea that when you're not feeling well, go and do a test to know what is really wrong with you. So our healthcare system will be data driven. And that's the Lagos of my vision, and that's the Lagos of my promise. So we've talked about healthcare, we've talked about education, we've talked about transportation, we've talked about a governance of trust, of accountability, and finally, to wrap it all up, we are going to look at all the lands that have been inappropriately seized from indigenous communities across Ibile, Lagos State. From as far back as Ikorodu, Ekpe, to the Badagry or Jaw, there are so many families that have been dispossessed of land without being consulted or carried along or treated fairly or been shown the real reason why these things were done or these things were taken. And we are going to ensure that we look into all of these situations and ensure that whatever land was dispossessed, those families receive some level of compensation. Because there cannot be peace where there is no justice. And Lagos State must be a state that is built on justice. We will also ensure that all our education system, everything that we are doing, will carry women along. Because, I give you an example. We have 2 million children out of school. Lagos State will tell you that education system is free. But there are so many children that are not going to school. A woman has been widowed. A woman has been divorced. A woman is emotionally challenged and she's the primary caregiver of children. How will she wake up in the morning to take care of these children to get them to school? So in all these policies, we will ensure that we carry our mothers along. We will ensure that finances are made available to them for whatever small, medium business that they are going to do, to ensure that they are carried along and they are in the best mind to raise the future of Lagos State, which are our youth. Multiple taxation will be a thing of the past in my government. The idea that a business, I've seen a business where on the same day, the LCDA will come and charge them tax. The local government will come and charge them tax. They are paying television and radio tax, but they don't have any television in the establishment. And this ties into not just the businesses, the markets, the market woman in Lagos Island, the northern spare parts trader in Igomu, multiple taxation. We are currently dealing with a mafia-type government that continues to just shake people down without adding value to their lives or enabling them be able to flourish in Lagos State. Lagos State currently ranks as number 17 on the ease of doing business list, lower than Kaduna that is dealing with Boko Haram. In my government, we are going to make Lagos State rank number 1 as the commercial capital and the ease of doing business in not just Nigeria, but Africa. Because I tell people, it was not by accident that Lagos State was called the center of excellence. It was not called a city of excellence. It was called the center of excellence. I tell people that as far back as 1910, 1920, Darocha was pumping water from Iju Waterworks to Lagos Island. And when you open the tap, you could drink from that tap. Today, that is not the case. There are so many communities that don't have water, especially places where the groundwater is not good. The islands of Lagos, we are going to ensure that we deliver water to as many households as possible in the next 4 years. Thank you so much. I look forward to your questions to delve deeper into what I'm going to do for Lagos State. So we started by talking about how we will fund these ideas. Lagos State borrowed $1.2 billion for this train system that they are doing. And when I was talking, as I was highlighting the problems, I also talked about what I'm going to do. But I'm going to break it down even more now. Lagos State by itself, because of the feasibility, in terms of the number of people, the population, in terms of how underserved it is very feasible to do so many projects here because the people will pay for that service. That is one. Two, by highlighting how we are going to open our accounting, we're saying that we are going to benchmark these projects to the World Bank standard. So we are not going to have over-bloated or over-padded contracts anymore in Lagos State. That means that our 1 naira, we will make sure that we get the best deal on that 1 naira. We are not going to be spending 4 naira to get the value of 1 naira. Between 1999 and 2003, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu in total did about 6.85 to 7 kilometers of road, which is surprising. You would think he did a lot more, but numerically, that was what it all came to. When you look at the amount that was spent on it, based on the World Bank benchmark for roads per kilometer, we could have got about 96.8 kilometers of road. And this is the opportunity cost I'm talking about. A lot of times in Lagos State, we wonder where we get this money, where we get this money. Well, first of all, you can be rest assured that my government will not be giving any alpha beta any money every month. That money will be invested directly in education and healthcare. Secondly, all forms of money is being taken out of all the revenue generating establishments in Lagos State, because for the longest time I thought it was just alpha beta. Go and look at Loma. We must, when we do, by God's grace, a forensic audit, because we are not going to witch hunt, but we must understand what has been going on in the last 20 years. Because to move forward, you must know where you are coming from. And when you look at all the revenue generating parastatals in Lagos State, there is a line item that is going to somebody. And all these monies will now be invested in the people, because we have no Baba in Labour Party that is going to be collecting this money for me. That's the second thing. Lastly, as a government, our work is not to be doing white elephant projects. We will create an enabling environment for the private sector to step in and do these projects. What we will aim to do is ensure that we own a minimum of 20 to 30% of that project, and we create an enabling environment to remove all bottlenecks, give them incentives as much as we can, whether it's land allocations, whether it's tax reductions, whether it's tax incentives, and ensure that the value that they give this service to the people of Lagos is at the most minimum that it can be, but the quality of service is the best for the most amount of people in the fastest possible time. And that is my priority as the governor of Lagos. You will find that most governors coming to Lagos State, they don't carry on the projects of their predecessor, because these projects were really done to share money, and the money has already been shared in that project. So unfortunately, they don't want to carry it on because there's nothing for them to eat, so they go and do another project. And that's why you see, and that's it, they'll just be doing it continuously, right? So for me, the purse strings of Lagos State should not be the sole determinant of how fast and how quickly we implement projects. The thing that should determine how fast and how quickly we implement projects is the feasibility of those projects, and for them, those projects to pay itself off. And Lagos State, because of our population, because of how hardworking and innovative and industrious the people of Lagos are, the citizens will pay back quality service that makes their life easier and makes them more efficient. So these are the ways that we are going to fund our projects. So we are not just talking fairy tales. A very fantastic point you mentioned was, the UNESCO standard, like you said, is 1 to 20, or 1 to 21, 1 to 20, 1 to 21. And this was how education was for a very long time in Nigeria, even as a whole. Unfortunately, today, not only are our children getting poor education, they are packed like sardines in classrooms, and we are also overworking the teachers. Because you have a class, like he highlighted, of 1 to 70 ratio, but then in that same class there are about 8 arms, and you have a teacher teaching maths having to mark the papers of almost 300 children, when really that teacher should be focused on giving quality attention, education, and even empathy, to even know that child, to understand that child's strength and teach that child based on the strengths of that child, because that is what the rest of the world is doing, and we are so far behind. Exactly. They know you by your name, they know your strengths, they know your weaknesses, and they tailor the teaching to your interest and your strengths. And that's where we need to go. We need to invest more in our education, build more quality classrooms, hire more teachers, increase the salaries of teachers. And listen, when people say these things are not possible, you will only truly know how much money is generated in Lagos State when another government comes in. It was when Ambode came in that we found out that people were doing borehole for 70 million. It's the truth. Are we going to deny it? We were there when this information was released, right? computer website program for almost 400 and something million. So even the numbers we are talking about are the numbers that they are showing us. And I say to people, it's not even in your interest to allow one politician or one political party to be in control for so long. They say politicians are like diapers of a baby. You need to change it and change it often. And that's what we need. So that the politicians are always on their toes. And you can always have one x-ray the other, because at the end of the day, you are the one hiring us. We are not your bosses, you are our bosses. And the moment that is confused, you need to get them out. And that is why I'm running. Because you need somebody that's going to come and clean up the system. And if I do not live up to these things I'm promising, they remove me. The democracy is a continuous process where we are searching to get the best, the leanest, the most efficient form of government. It's not, you don't vote and go home and sit down. You must continue. And that is what has been lacking, particularly in Lagos State, because we started off so well. When we go to our history and look at the people that were the first groups of people that came into government, you had the Alakijas, you had Gbadebo Rhodes, you had Doherty's. These were excellent people. And that is why Lagos State was called the center of excellence. But then all our fathers just, I don't know what happened. But we are going to correct that by God's grace. You asked a fantastic question about flooding. Lagos State is a coastal state. Unfortunately, we don't have any wetland protection policy. Wetlands in coastal states are nature's natural gutters. It's where water accumulates. But because of greed in Lagos State, they just give approval to every developer to just sand fill everywhere. When you are going on Third Mainland Bridge, just look on, if you are going towards the island, look on your left. You see, even your left and right, they've already started sand filling. They started sand filling. I believe they are doing it slowly because of politics, and they don't want the Makoko people to just revolt. But when that is sand filled, water that should be coming out is now trapped. Tomorrow they will say that the Yaba Lagos mainland axis is flooding, is climate change. That's what they will say. You do Ilubiri, you do not think about the drainage channels that need to happen there. Lagos Island, the road to Oba's Palace is flooding, is climate change. Ikorodu is being flooded by Eco Atlantic, all the water that has been displaced. There were no proper embankments done to protect that local government. Guess what? It's climate change. So we must be more proactive. We must have a wetland protection policy that is sacrosanct. As an architect, I would ensure that this happens. We can urban regenerate all of Lagos and have sustainable local governments without sand filling everywhere. Water must stay somewhere. Water will always move. Water cannot just vanish. You push water out somewhere, it's going to go somewhere. Exactly. So we must ensure that we have a wetland protection policy. Our waste management, not what we currently have. What we currently have is not waste management. It's waste dumping. We are wasting waste. Waste is something that has value. Once you are sand filling with your waste, you are wasting value. So you are wasting waste. There are countries in the world that import waste. The Netherlands imports waste. They create power. They create organic fertilizer. They upcycle, they recycle plastics. That is Lagos State. After the human capacity, the biggest resource after that is the amount of waste we generate, because we are in such a small footprint and we have so many human beings. You look at Kwara State, there are settlements. So before you can carry waste to make a huge quantity, you have to drive very far. That's not the case in Lagos State. Alimosho alone can give you a lot of waste to generate so much and make a biogas plant feasible. So for us, and I'm going to tie this into a question about waste management, and I thank you for talking about that, because I didn't talk about that in my manifesto. But it's very important. Even my thesis when I was at MIT was about, it was called formalizing the informal. a proposal for the periphery urbanite. At that time, we had a lot of those cart pushers. Loma was still being formed, and they were experiencing a lot of, resistance. And for me, it was about creating a communal waste collection system that created value from waste, so that people saw waste as something that was a commodity. Now, to institutionalize this, we are going to, one, ensure to the local government. You see, unfortunately, the state government has made the local government mediocre at best. So many responsibilities that belong to local government, from waste collection to advert agencies generating money, all of those things were supposed to come to local government. But they have literally ripped the feathers off their wings. So we must ensure that the waste management system is localized at the local government level. And I say this because we need to ensure that waste is divided and separated from the house. All the rice, organic food that you eat goes into a different bin. Gbadebo and corn as well can go to Gbadebo and can go to a different bin as well. And then the plastics, the papers go into a separate one, so that when the trucks come, the pathway for organic waste is separate from the pathway for paper and plastic waste. And when they are moving, they are going to a biodigester, that the revenue being generated goes to the local government. So it incentivizes the local government to make sure that this waste is being separated. Now, the more efficient your system is, the more money you will make. That money must then be tied into healthcare and education. Local governments must start to compete with each other, so that when somebody is thinking about where am I going to live, I'm going to look at the ratings of the primary school and secondary school in that local government. I'm going to look at the quality of the waste collection system. There will be regular rankings and ratings done by the state government. Now, in achieving all of this, then my head can now focus on the bigger issues of Lagos. I have no business as governor thinking about the inner roads of Apapa, Oshodi, Solo, or Jeremy Feludu. It makes no sense. And that is why they are in the dilapidated state that they are. So again, it goes back to the local government. So when I talk about waste management, we're going to ensure that not only are we separating our waste from the house, we are going to depoliticize the entire system. To get engaged in Loma activity, you must know the who is who in the ruling party. And that's why till today, we are still so underserved. Because if you are not a member of the clique, you cannot participate in it. But we are going to open it up. Openness and transparency is the spirit of my entire government. If you, a private individual, has the truck that meets different requirements, you can automatically, like Uber, you are a driver, you have a bus, you have a car. You show it, we see it, we inspect it, you are part of Uber. That's exactly what will be happening. Same thing with the BRT lanes. We are not going to allow for a monopoly of only one company to use the BRT lanes, especially when people have to wait for 30-40 minutes for buses to come. If a private individual has a bus and it meets the requirements that we need, that person can use the BRT lanes. So we are going to open our entire government, enable the private sector to get involved, because guess what? These monopolies, the people that suffer are the people of Lagos. The young man or woman that wakes up in the morning trying to rush to get to work and has to stand still for 40 minutes waiting for another bus to come. When there are many business people that could afford to do one bus, invest in it, so that we'll be having minimum wait time or maximum wait time of 6 minutes. You missed your bus, 6 minutes and now bus is there. And then you can now start to plan, and we can be a people of time. We are not a people of time, because there is nothing that goes to plan or schedule. And these are things that we are going to change. Then there was, so I've talked about drainage, and lastly, we have a primary, secondary, and tertiary means of evacuating water in Lagos State. When we've established value in our waste, right, it will now no longer be normal for you to be dumping plastics. Yes. And we ensure that the local governments will make sure that they cover the gutters, right? And then we're also going to mechanize our drainage at the tertiary part of it. We're going to have pumps that are pumping water out of Lagos State, and it will run based on data. So we are not running at 100% capacity, when it's not rainy season, right? Based on data of water inflows, the energy that's being sent to that pump will run, right? So we have primary, secondary, tertiary waterways that will make sure they are running efficiently, will make sure they are covered because waste will not be dumping in them, and then all our canals tied into our wetland protection plan would be free. I mean, you go to, I passed through Surulere today, and you see a canal overgrown with weeds, fully dumped, waste just dumped there, and then we are surprised that flooding is happening, right? That is not the way that this thing can be solved. So we are going to ensure that our waterways are free of obstruction, our gutters are also free of obstruction, and they are mechanized to ensure that they are working efficiently. Another interesting question that came was state policing. I am in favor of state policing. I'm in favor of government being as close to people as possible. I'm also in favor of the informal sector, or what we call the informal sector, being part of the formal sector, right? So for me, already every community in Lagos State has a level of security that they're doing. There are places in Lagos where if you lose your phone, there are people you go and talk to, they will tell you who took the phone and they can get that phone back for you. So there's also already an informal network of information gathering that the state government is not tapping into. We are going to formalize this because we will make the local government stronger. We will draw them close to us. That's our formal means of security. And then we tie that in with a formal network of security surveillance, which is also tied into the Commonwealth of Lagos. So when you are a member and you have the benefit of health insurance, you have the benefit of affordable housing, you have the benefit of credit, when you come to register, pictures will be taken of you so that we can track where you are. And we can gather intelligence, because that's where Lagos needs to get to. We are too far behind, right? So that if you are doing anything wrong, you see, when you are in London, any part of London, they don't have fence, they don't have burglary proof, because they know that you know that if you try anything, they will find you from when you left your house to when you got to that place. And that way, it's a deterrent to people doing things wrong. And then people can actually have a nice window without burglary proof, as if you're a dog in a dog house, right? That's what we are going to move out of. When the white man came to Africa and Nigeria, they turned everything upside down. Our traditional rulers had significant roles in community, security, just the balance of the entire system. Now, Nigeria, I'm sorry, but we are suffering from identity crisis. We are, you know, and for me, we want to restore the dignity to ruling houses in Lagos State. We want to restore the autonomy of ruling houses in Lagos State. They are having to do these things not because they are happy, not because they want to, but they found that they don't have a choice, and there's a constitution that gives the governor the power that he exudes on them. But because you have power does not mean you should use power in a certain way, because the local governments, the communities suffer for this. I'll give you an example. I was supposed to get a title from the Akran of Badagry. All plans have been made, everything has been going forward. All of a sudden, Sanwo-Olu declared and wrote a letter that no king, no Ibile king should give title to anybody until after election. For what? For what? That is an insult of the highest order. Like I say, because the white man came and in his conquest of you, established a constitution for himself that gave him power over the kings, you come into that system, you now inherit the position of the white man. It does not mean you have to behave like the white man. Because you have a certain level of power, does not mean you should accept it. Because you must always understand the history of how these things came to be. So for me, I will come with the approach of restoring the dignity to our kings, ensuring that the process that establishes our kings, there are people that are loved by their people. There are people that don't have to run away from their people or live behind fences. And those will be kings over those people in those places, because those kings will make my life easier. When we are dealing with high youth unemployment, when we are dealing with drug abuse, the kings and the traditional houses have a role to play. And we'll be working together to ensure we have a better Lagos. Suffocated. Go to any hotel, any businesses, they are constantly taxing them without any benefit. Right? So we are going to get rid of all that stealth taxation. We're going to ensure that there's an automated means of taxation that is not being shaken down by people. We also establish credit systems for them, right? And reward people that are employing as many beneficiaries of the system that we use for youth empowerment, right? So all of these things tying together. We'll also be ensuring that our government is selling Lagos State in the best way possible, maximizing our security. My dream and my vision for Lagos State is that in the first 2.5 years, we'll make Lagos State a 15-hour economy, right? By the 6th year, by God's grace, if the good people of Lagos give me a second mandate, will be to make Lagos by the 6th year a 24-hour economy, so that we've secured it and businesses can make multiple income because people are not rushing to get home because they are scared they will get robbed. So these are the things we are going to make sure that we create an enabling environment for the SMEs to be able to do well. I talked about, one of the major pillars I talked about, I think I've already addressed waste management. We talked about Agberos, even when I talked initially, because youth unemployment is a major problem in Lagos State. And I'm going to repeat what I said. I said we're going to create an alternative means for them to earn a living. The fact of the matter is the job description that they currently have in Lagos State, which is to be state-backed terrorist, in my opinion, because you have a situation, one of our members yesterday was macheted on his head because he was posting a Peter Obi poster. He was macheted on his head, right? And these young men are doing this because they have the audacity that they are backed by the state government. We saw this during the NSAS when young people were protesting in front of the state government house, and a BRT bus or 2 BRT bus came there with hoodlums, with machetes. We have pictures of them. They were never apprehended, they were never arrested. They could do that to the governor sitting down in his office because they know that they are backed by the state government. Now, we are going to do our work. So we are not going to be counting on young people to be suppressing our votes. So that job description is off the table. We will relate to them as our brothers, as our children, as stakeholders in Lagos State. Work with them to create employment skill acquisition programs that they are interested in. Fund it, enable it, and ensure that we create incentives for companies to hire graduates and people that successfully complete that program. So for me, that was what I highlighted. We are also going to social engineer Lagos State in terms of our values. It will no longer be okay to celebrate monkey they walk, baboon they chop in Lagos State. It is no longer okay to just take easy money and it's okay. No, we are going to celebrate a culture of hard work, productivity. In our education, in the values that we teach our children, it's about hard work, productivity. As Labour Party, we are restoring dignity to labor. You go, you are working hard, there's dignity in it, we pay you properly. And that's why it's important that we are going to upwardly review the salaries we pay to our teachers, to our doctors, and to all our civil servants, right? And make sure that it can fit into our budget. And I know that this is cause for concern, but when you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So we must pay people a living wage. And another thing why businesses fail in Lagos State is that we don't have enough people with disposable income. So a business will go and rent a space, they will be there for a year, they don't have enough people patronizing them, and then they close down. But then if we have money injected into hard-working members of society, they can then go, they have more disposable income, businesses is thriving, and then the government is earning more in tax. So we must ensure that people earn a living wage. And that's something we are going to achieve. And the last question, well, second to the last, we talked about house rent in Lagos State. So we are going to tackle that by creating as much affordable housing as we possibly can. We currently have a 2 million housing deficit in Lagos State. I've talked about the transportation network we're going to do to reduce the land pressure on Lagos Central and open up Lagos East and Lagos West so that more people can have affordable housing on these axes of Lagos, connect it properly, and then incentivize developers to also create multi-income housing. In London, even if you're in Park Lane, there's a development. There must be affordable housing in the development that the richest man lives in. so that you can get planning permission. It is wrong that we have a state where you are in ultra wealth and luxury, and you just go upstairs and look across the wall and you see slums and shanty. That should not be the case. Development for Lagos, there is a very flawed and stupid idea that development means eradicating the poor, leaving behind the poor. That's what development has meant in Lagos State. They go, they chase all the indigenes of that place out, they build a development that none of them can afford, and they say we are living in a mega city. But then outside the roof, outside the window, on a road that's supposed to be a coastal highway, it has been taken over by shanties. You chase them out, they go and build on the water. So what are we talking about? We need inclusive development, and that's what we're going to achieve with our affordable housing plans for Lagos State. And lastly, I am completely, like I've said, for the autonomy of local governments. It's a disgrace and it is despicable that the government of Lagos State has rejected and refused to sign that, and then they call themselves the progressive government. This is the same state that fought the federal government for its rights, but then it denies the local government's rights for autonomy, and it is entirely wrong. I believe in local government autonomy. I believe in having very robust and potential governors. I want to see potential governors as our local government chairmen, visionaries, leaders, people that are loved by their people as our local government chairmen. Because when we have people like that, it makes my job easier as the governor of Lagos State. Thank you very much. God bless you.
No be in vain. Make our children know they live like slaves. We don't cry, we don't see shege.